Here we go. Yeah, anyways, it's just a quick update on the work we've been doing. There we go. On a back-forward cache restoration entry addition to the performance timeline. How here has been actually implementing it is on the call today as well. This has been in response to issue 182 on performance timeline, where we're talking about new navigation types and basically how we want to represent those. I believe the resolution after many rounds was that we really do want different entry types. These aren't navigation entries; they're fundamentally different, so we should treat them differently. We're going to tie them all together with the concept of a navigation ID. But basically what we've got is a new performance entry object, currently named back forward cache restoration entry. It's a bit long, but we can bike shed on names. Extends performance entry directly. We're not trying to extend navigation entry. Most of the fields on that simply aren't relevant to a BFCache restore. The fields we've got on it from performance entry, I mean, it doesn't have a name. Has an entry type. We want to emit this basically at the point when a page is reinstated from the cache, but right after the page show events have been handled. And the reason for that is that we want to basically encapsulate the timing of the page show event. So event start, event end, very similar to the page load start, page load end on a navigation entry, and similar things to that. That's the end of the slides, but what I'm looking at is, or looking for, is feedback on, does the API shape make sense? Are there additional fields that people think that we should capture? We went through a bunch of different things on navigation entry and performance entry, and figured that this is sort of the minimal set that actually makes sense. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
A couple questions. Can you remind me, would duration be set in this case as well? Would it be set to like the duration of the start plus the page show end event? And
I believe so. I believe duration is defined on performance entry directly. I'd have to go look. So start and duration would both be there, and yeah, it would end up basically being a page show event end.
Okay, that's why I'm asking. The definition of it for this event would be the page from the start of the back button being clicked or whatever to the page show event end.
Right. How, correct me if that's totally wrong, but I think that's...
Yeah, I think so. It is, yeah, as you say, it's defining the performance entry, and it is interval between the start time, which is navigation start in this case, and the page show event, I think.
Cool.
Okay. Good, because that'll reflect kind of the user experience, right? When the user thinks that the page is ready. Okay.
Right.
Another question, if you don't mind. Navigation ID. You mentioned that this will be the first.
Yeah. So
entry with that. Two questions related are. I'm trying to remember our previous discussions on this. Is navigation ID just kind of like an auto-incrementing number, or is it some sort of unique ID?
That is an excellent question. The current implementation that we have behind the flag in Chrome is an auto-incrementing number. I think it starts at 1 with the initial network HTTP navigation, and would be incremented with any BFCache or even SPA nav. Sort of with one of these being the first in a new sequence of events with that same navigation ID. There is definitely a point to be made that an unguessable token might be, if anything, it might stop people from relying on the semantics of an incrementing ID. And it might allow us to, at the point where we want to introduce a navigation ID for SPA navs, for instance, we don't want to break anybody's assumption that only BFCache increments this and it always goes in strict ascending sequence. It does make testing it more difficult. But yeah, I'd be interested in knowing other people's take on pros and cons of those.
One thing that we have seen in our field data for our RUM stuff is that not all beacons, not all telemetry makes it to our backend, right? So for whatever reason, not every single thing arrives at our servers. And we do increment the like beacon number, if you will, every time we send a beacon. So we can actually spot the cases where we're missing some telemetry because like the numbers jump or something like that. I'm not sure if that would be applicable here. You know, I guess you might be able to notice if you're not getting telemetry and like you miss one of the incrementing navigation IDs or something that might help you understand that you missed some of the thing that you're tracking.
And Nick, does that increment across page loads? Like, is that a cookied value? Yeah, okay.
For us, it is, yeah. And so the concepts are slightly different, but yeah, I'm not sure if it would help in some debugging cases to make sure that you're not missing, or you whether you know you're missing something or not, right? Not sure if there's any other opinions on that.
And the navigation ID is in performance entry?
Yes.
Okay. So that was already added separately?
Yeah. Or it's a separate proposal to add that. It's not officially in the spec yet, but yeah. That's the reason it's not this IDL.
And based on that, are you thinking that the other entries would also by default have this navigation ID at the same time that this is released? Now that we have a thing saying it's navigation ID, would all the other things link to that navigation ID?
Yes, that's the idea. We want to append that to basically every performance timeline entry, and then each event basically gets the ID of the most recent previous navigation.
Okay.
Just allows you to tie them all together on front end or back end wherever you need.
I have one more question if nobody else does. Thinking through the duration here that we were talking about of the user action till the page show event end. It's nice that we have this breakdown for how long the page show event took, because obviously that can be affected by the page, the work that they're doing there. Is there any other interesting breakdowns of the difference that you might encounter, like the unexplained other duration until before the page show event starts, for example, that we could expose here, something that the site might be able to affect by doing less things or something? Or is that more like browser internal? Don't really want to.
I suspect that it's mostly browser internal. There's probably some page hide logic that goes on in the previous page that might be affecting it, but we certainly can't expose that.
I see. Yep. Okay.
Just should I stop the recording? Because
Whoops.
yeah.
Good idea. Yeah.